So this is one big one. Here's the deal. As I was here sitting down, you see there's a lot of wind, and it's supposed to feel very comfortable, right? Except it doesn't. It turns out it feels quite different on account of what they're throwing in the air on me. And this is why I'm documenting this. As of now, I could have stayed longer confined animals. Two things that's the point. One is this, they would have stayed longer. I can't, because otherwise this is multiple days. That's when you go from the other direction. It's really good. To the point where, as I'm saying, I just start feeling sick. Right now, it varies, not too much, but as soon as I sit down there and start to distract myself with something else, or anything else that they think they're no longer being reported, not they making a sense, not you can't see it, right? Although they do throw those things that I'm recording, and you see those already, you see how while talking to you, stop. My body changes in reaction to what they're throwing. So you can see those already. As of now, though, it must be because they released those things in bursts, and it just didn't get to the time of a burst yet. So, and body can push it out. So that's it. Okay, now, granted, I was not even supposed to be here. I should have left. They're throwing a lot of the depression drugs and several times. And this is as official as it gets. As a matter of fact, it is so artificial. The effects will probably mirror. Quindi they can probably the mirror the effects are exactly this way. They don't mirror or mimic, they are caused by chemistry. The psychotropics, something quite similar. Now, as I pointed, there's another thing that I want to mention. The time to start with that company goes. Because, for instance, several times, one as they from the passenger told me I know her face. This is why. As a matter of fact, if you want to see proof of this, of how intentional this is every time that they play on me, playing games or playing other things, and I emphasize how much they do those things at times when they know that they're drugging me. Because at normal stage, this wouldn't happen. But while they're throwing those narcotics and other drugs, things like this compile. Like in my body, even psychologically, as it may. And once they do compile, they have the problem of now no longer it's just, their problem. Now it's their problem plus all the secret that one. This bread is the best bread we have. As from this one now, so the other one is too bad. So that's pretty much it, right? So see, in other words, changing the angle a bit. See what they did to me when they think they're gonna go along with that crap because I'm a homeless guy, right? And I'm gonna say that it's wrong or immoral. Your opinions varying how bad, how terrible that is. I mean, pretty much everybody that is a reasonable person finds that terrible. It's just it varies a little bit. Now this is a different thing because instead of trying to lie to each other, as you saw the wankers, call them masturbators. I don't say wankers because it's too much like monkey. That doesn't take it seriously enough. We call them masturbators. It's so long and it's so pronounced that the shocking effect more than makes up for the lewd, almost jokingly technology. So it compensates, right? Sends a very clear message that there's said for a reason. Nobody would say that colloquially. So the masturbator thing, when it goes in just, masturbating each other in the sense of lying and winking and nodding and smiling and kind of all parties involved in those interactions are already fully aware of everything. They're just communicating that to each other for sure, right? That's why often they like to do it in front of me, all around. And you listen to that for a couple of seconds and you catch it. But in fact, that before, I did that so many times that this is their modus operandi at this point. Just the act of trying to do that is already far more evidential for the case than anything else. Kind of good. Just like any other criminal. And note that not only they have those, which they follow meticulously in most cases, but they also have signatures. Again, just like special criminals, right? Those more rare types of criminals who follow crimes and like to leave those signs for the police. Except in this case, they're not leaving for the police, they're leaving for you. So, here's the deal. And yeah. I mean, when I said you're trying to leave it for me, I relay as soon as I find anything to you. Try to do that as meticulously and as in conformity as authentically as possible. So let's say I mentioned the signature things like the sock, the serial killer who likes to put socks on handrails, right? So let's say that they pick up one of my socks and take off my feet and place them in a weird place as I'm asleep. And then I wake up in the morning and the sock is there. I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to film it. In fact, chances are increased now because I mentioned this here, given that in itself is another signature. So you listen to the things that I would say and do that. It can be considered more MO if you think that they use that as a method to commit further crimes. But honestly, there are times when that doesn't even add to anything. That's just a signature. You see the best example in those, ironically enough, the police officers on the encounter. Saying those things didn't add it up to anything. As I said, I didn't even thought that they did a crime per se. By saying those things as a signature, by definition, in fact. They just did those things so you would know that they're involved in this. And technically, so I would know, which begs the question, yes, I do acknowledge that. It wouldn't have changed my behavior. In fact, you know that because I said my behavior prior to that. I said exactly what I was going to do. In fact, if instead of the cops there had been the guy, same thing, hey, can I stay up to 5 something? I'm just closing my face and getting ready to leave. And, yeah. Now you saw that in other hands they have a, say that kind of a definition of a Pyrrhic victory, because they said this is a case for the masses, right? It's a shit show for the masses. And most importantly, everything is about perspective. And you notice that, as probably too stupid to realize until now they're starting to, their opinion don't matter. You see, they can say, you're not going to ping pong them on what they say only. You're going to ping pong them what they say versus their life. Let's say that they are this leftist guy who stands by people, everybody have a bit of land, and just a fool call me, right? Then all of a sudden he has this rich guy bullying a homeless person. Doing that. How mad he dislikes me, and he might say that he dislikes me, so he supports that fully, and law enforcement is their job. But then you're not going to compare that with this, you're going to compare that with his entire life of wanting people to have things, and the commie style. Which, although not particularly my style, and I see that kind of not quite as an insult because it's an ideology, but I wouldn't, it's not mine. Goes to leave it at that. But he doesn't, obviously. He follows that, he boasts about it, he likes a good thing. So now you have a communist boasting a guy with so much land that connects between two cities, bullying a person, lying to the police to bully a person. For that, he acknowledged himself as not doing anything. As I said, it doesn't matter what he says. You're not going to compare, it doesn't matter his opinion, you're going to compare his statements with his prior actions. So you have a communist who supports very rich people abusing people who don't have much or anything. That's it. You're not gonna talk to him to convince him. You're gonna go to someone else and say, "Now, good luck actually getting other people to do that." Again. So this is the point that they're realizing. Apparently, some of those things are realizing now. This problem with reality cutting both ways all the time, like truth. So it doesn't matter about me. Whatever they say about me is fine. I couldn't care less. But you're gonna use that statement about what he does, right? And you find someone who has no, or again, now I don't even know. I'm just coming up with this guy. I don't know what this guy would be. Talking about that statement specifically, as I said, it's just interesting perspective. So at the end of the day, it didn't change anything. All we accomplished was two things actually, three in fact. That could actually many things. But for the things that you can see right away, is perspective. It's particularly because I was recorded, right? Because of the previous gaslighting and the previous abuses. You see someone who has been, if I instead I was being, prickishly saying, I will not, but instead, you see me on those prior recordings mentioning things like, look, if he's right, if he's property, if they want you, I'm just going to come back. He shows up, I'm going to be here. He did point a gun at me, towards me, with no reason. Now, I was concerned a little bit until I watched the video because I thought it was the time when I was walking. And that would have possibly been some grounds, but no. I stopped. I said, okay, I'm not doing anything. He has seen both my hands. At any point that I put my hands in pockets or anything weird, any point that I looked threatening or anything, made any threats or any sort of this, any of this, and he just wanted to show that he was pointing a gun at me through the door. Like, this is a big deal. This country, this is not allowed. You're not allowed to have weapons to begin with. You have to prove why you need to use a gun. And this is like for private security, police. You have to have a use for this. It's not the U.S. And I'm not diving on how much of that. Again, I'm not diving second-amendment discussions right now. It's not my point. It's not my country. It's not getting involved in politics. I myself would like to have a weapon in the future. But again, I don't intend to live here. As a matter of fact, I'm talking about laws in this country, not allowed to do that. And also, he says he needs the police, which is another crime because you cannot claim to be law enforcement if you're not law enforcement. That's very straightforward. It goes because the police can order you to do things that common people cannot. So when you identify yourself as a police officer, that's a crime. I think the misdemeanor, depending what you ask, you will become a felony, I'm quite sure. Because as I said, you cannot just pretend you're a cop, you get people to do what you want. It's not how life works. I assume that this is somewhat done. As always, subscribe as you should speak. So, to mask some digital crimes. So, and instead of the day, as I said, you have for me, for the most part, explaining, hey, look, when he shows up, I'm going to ask if I have to stay a bit more, if he wants me to leave. At least I'm going to ask, hey, could you just give me a ride? I have this thing so I can get it outside. I mean, you want me to get out? I'm okay with getting out. Could you just at least give me a ride on that? Friendly, not disrespectful, not trying to be nasty, didn't do any damage, didn't harm anyone at all. You have a pickup truck. Also, the other one that showed up later had a pickup truck, which is important because I understand they wouldn't want to be next to me inside the car, but in a trunk in the back, hardly a big deal. But if he doesn't want to, I'm gonna leave. But then I'm gonna see in the record that the nastiness of asking someone who you've seen here for at least 4 days by then. Everybody nodding, everybody's so happy and nice, and all of a sudden, as I said, everything is beautiful in paradise until they start their trust, right? And as I said, that's the phenomenon you can see in video. Now, that's not an atrocity in itself. It's an exaggeration to cause perspective because the actual atrocities you can argue were happening. Well, I would not say they were happening necessarily before, not something that would define as that. Those things did happen throughout this. But that's why I don't use that word very often. I would say extreme abuse and other things because they were drugging me that every day. There were a couple times when the drugging would stop, mostly because, as I said, that little tip over there is in the corner. So depending on the wind blows, it kind of at that point when it goes away entirely, and then it's just beautiful, right? As I said, finally an experience that I'll be in a place of breathing fresh air. And it's not just fresh air, it has to linger a little bit. So, and then, you saw with the ants and with all the other problems and with all the crimes that they literally I was able to function. And you did some backups and it was good. And this is for real, by the way. This is not even like in perspective. And this put in perspective the silliness of what the point that was. And also saying that it's not that silly. It has a lingering effect, much like the bus thing. But even that lingering effect, you can say that as universal justice, or whatever else you want to call it. Because, karma if you wish. Because even the hinge is actually useful. The hint provides with instantaneous way to know if I'm being drugged or not in a type of drug that's difficult to notice otherwise. So, let's say I'm walking to, let's say, the got a bus, right? And then I feel anxious about that. Normally, you'll be like, dude, it's proof against the bus company that have been abusing me systematically for over a year in a very dramatic way, much like the guy there. It's literally stealing money from a homeless person, right? So again, straightforward, $5, more than worth to showcase the other abuses that are already happening. It's not like they'll be the problem. This is the proof that makes the very explicit everything else. So you have this multi-million-dollar company that only, and then it packs a load because nobody's gonna praise that just by itself. It comes with the full load. It's the only company in the city. Charges as much as São Paulo or Rio, which are cities in proportion sizes. Bus is always full. Everything else. And then you notice, as I said, it doesn't really matter the answer. Everybody else wants to say, okay, we're cool with being abused this much, so long as this boy who we don't even know is abused as well. That's great. That's evidence. That's this crime, by the way. That's the very thing that I'm saying. They'll be okay with they take advantage of by this company, which, whatever, certainly even if it's public, it's probably so grossly mismanaged because if it is public on top of that and not making a profit, they should be much cheaper. Like, this is insanely expensive. As I said, the same price I used to pay back home. But again, that's when the time comes. And again, I just want to find a reminder, it's not just the distances. It's the time you spend inside the bus. Because distances come and go. The thing you should remember is, if you're inside the bus is on. The driver's being paid. Everything else that comes, right? If you're stuck in traffic, for instance, you're not even picking up new passengers. It's actually worse when you stop than not, because the engine's still running, the driver is still running its time. And so I'm just saying, this costs, those companies make profit, like they're profitable companies where they come from, which means that all of those things, they still make money and they charge as much. So again, at some point the math does the math. And as I said, with all those things, you notice that it doesn't matter much. They can choose to indeed see this as outrageous and try to push for that. And now you know that they have access to this if you see this and you know that that's the situation. And some of those times are pretty grossly bad, right? As I said, for some of those areas, even if you say there's 1 hour, you take a bus, 1 hour is a very long time. Okay, it's not like you couldn't put 2 microbuses or minibuses and have that halved in half. They're not as efficient is the thing, which is my point. But as I said, I'm not using this. I'm putting this in perspective because seeing the type of abuses I receive from virtually everyone, virtually, not literally, but virtually everyone, that's the way you can phrase that their opinion no longer matters. They can choose 1 or 2 evils, but at the end of the day, not evils, it's 1 or 2 options, because at the end of the day, that's the point. Morally speaking, both of them are wrong. One, they're being taken advantage of with complete impunity, and this will serve as an aggravating factor, and they'll be pissed about it. The other one, they wouldn't be pissed about it. They'll be happy because I'm being abused, and if I'm amusing, that I'll be doing this, probably presuming that their opinion is actually what is at stake here, and instead, that's the one argument that bypasses the opinion entirely. It's kind of like an equation in math when you can cut the thing from both sides. That's essentially it. It's not like you dealing with the problem, you're just annulling it. So at the end of the day, and you have actual evidence, funny enough, of the actual problem, because the actual crime is not done by one company. The actual crime is done by virtually everyone, right? Let's just see. Now, if you say, well, what about we just don't leave? Well, you see, that's the thing. Those crimes are showcased in small scale and big scale. In big scale, you see the existing, and the things you see in commentaries that I do and I make and references in general. That's why I showcase how many people are involved in this, because that helps explain the smaller crimes. Now, there's nothing small about drugging someone, but when you systematically drug a person and there's no place a person can go to, which become evident during torture days, right? Remember me saying in agony that there was no place to go, something that they'll probably be mocking? Yeah, you see, the mockery proves they're aware of that, and the no place to go is not entirely inaccurate. So the point is, and not just in the city, in fact, as a whole, that's precisely the point. That is where the argument dies. That's just another excuse, and one of many, in fact. As I said, these days, they stuck on the bags. If soon enough bags to be dealt with, they're going to stuck on something else. Before, they were stuck on smell, as you saw. Yeah, Sunday, on the Sunday Easter, mind you, on the gas station. One day for you to start a new life, so to speak. Where they were making direct reference to the time when they stalked or looked in while I was inside the bathroom, and moved to claim lies about me while saying dehumanizing things. Because it's not just about saying you stink. It's saying that you stink. It's saying that I say stink because it was in the past. Yeah, they didn't quite say that last night. I think, well, one day in the implication. That doesn't matter. It's not a personal opinion. I'm not concerned for, oh, she thinks I stink. My problem is they're using this as a way to dehumanize me and disfranchise me, depriving me of rights that I otherwise have, even though that itself doesn't do anything. Again, you can trace back to the City of Thieves when, again, if you remember right, police officers in uniform told the bus driver while laughing and giggling. You can see all of that in the video. Full stop. Fully uniformed. I call 911. A uniform officer showed up, which fully links up that there's no way to say there's a costume. He was talking to the other officers as officers, so that's police officer in the City of Thieves, in Rios, because I think Argentina also uses State Patrol as the actual law enforcement unit. Just like here. And stopped me from boarding a bus on grounds that I was thinking, apparently. And on that day, I spent the afternoon on a 4-star restaurant, so to speak, for that city. Anyway, that's a 2-star most. But the point is, the second most expensive restaurant in the city. Eating ice cream as it may, but trust me, if I was thinking to the point that I couldn't end on a bus, it ain't no way in the same city with the same police department that they would let me there. And plus, as I saw just today in the video, it ain't no way a cop would be trying to keep you in that city if you want to leave. Okay, if they cannot arrest you, and if you want to leave, unless they, again, I'm adding the agenda. What I heard in the thing was if you want to make a code, that's why I don't like the codes. There ain't no way he's doing that to keep you. He want you out. Yeah, we see that in fucking Rambo, for Christ's sake. But he's not doing that. Right? Again, Rambo famously the whole scene about the escalation of police abuse. So I just love the certain things that kind of just write themselves as far as evidence goes. You just can see genius, and then someone just, did you actually see the movie? As for the, and you say, well, perspective is different. Again, that what you just witnessed, this back and forth thing, this just talking, the nervousness, yeah. As I was saying, I was here. Everything was fine. That's an audio recording underneath. This was recording audio as well. The audio is saved because I didn't want to start the video before intro. I think it's saved. There's a previous one that is for sure. I know there was no audio. It stopped 12 minutes before I started the video. It stopped. So I started the audio actually, which was like seconds before this video, because it apparently ran out of space. For perspective, the entire audio recording happened after the phone supposedly had no space, because I deleted and then re-added exactly the same amount And when they did it again, all of a sudden there was more space available. Mystery. This whole shit show you just watched, that's that. Okay, but just mentioning, that's just a reference to the smell. So when you say smell, it's not about you stink, it's about direct reference to the event that they both things that had going personal things of great emotional value, not just evidence, which we should have the original backup in Sovereign Soil. Everything that references that way is that way for a reason. And if you think that this is bad, again, when actual rest of people kick in and see this type of abuse, particularly a lot of individuals, especially law enforcement, trying to bully and harass one person, and the arguments, the killer arguments about, we don't like what you're saying, so it came from before. Yeah, funny enough, those people also deal with a lot of people that don't like what they say, and the comedians and other people in general. So again, they're just professionals. I am very much a rookie on that field, so if they don't like the certain portrayals, they have seen anything in. As for the actual, again, it's too much. Just gonna mention the whole, ironically enough, it's funny to see how the war criminals dissociated themselves. Because you imagine after that much abuse and after things like sleeping, like this, you'd be me dissociated. And this is bad because it'd be worse to have the outside. And I wasn't the evidence. I would be the one dissociated. And instead, you say that somehow the criminals had their heads stuck up their heads, that they dissociated themselves, that they actually believe that they could go along with it. Which, as I said, for what it's worth, even that's another perspective. And that is what did those things. So, and I'll go back to the bus thing. And you see that has tangible effects, not by themselves. Like by itself, it means nothing. You'll just say, great, more evidence. That's very good. It's actually a very cheap price to pay for something that demonstrates everything. Because as I said, none of those things are having context. As I said, one time, sure, you could argue that this was one crazy driver, it got luck or whatever, right? It's already the second time. And it happens again, that's the conflict. Because at the end of the day, he has witnesses. He wants to prove that everybody has access to those videos. He proves everything. I'm not shy about it. It's one of the things I've been trying to talk about the most these days. And put it out loud. Is essentially that again, once established certain things, those things are established for everything. Again, just like truth, just like reality works, right? You know that they know about things, they know about things, which means that you don't really need a reason. It's just going to reflect back and seeing everything else, because that's when everything else comes into play. So it's retroactive in its own way. So it's retroactive in that way, and it's retroactive in the way back, because even if there is an assumption of doubt, you're going to see several other things where that assumption doesn't exist. It might not be as serious as you literally stealing money from people. Some even more serious, like they were physically assaulted inside the bus, and the driver trying to intimidate them into leaving before police arrives, because when I said the police was in the way, they decided to just go back and go away. Not the type of people that actually good people does. Good people just wait for the police. Now, that's an issue because, again, if the police act corruptly, that is going to be filmed, there's going to be so again, it's not, there's no almighty beings in this. Everybody is always scrutinized by somebody else. The fact is, they want to do their crimes and be completely unimpeded doing their crimes in plain daylight, and there are consequences for that. Even if the consequences go all the way to everybody else. Because, as I said, quite simply, they want to come to you and say to your face, yeah, indeed, you're just trying to destroy the life of this one person. You know that he was innocent, you know he did nothing wrong. Because if it's wrong, you can point it out. If you cannot point it out, it's because it didn't happen, right? So like they're being drugged all the time, like me, that I can barely think, or be confused and other things. I mean, some of them are. You see children right next to me as they drug me, so it's not like they are not. But even the simple fact that they are a large group of people, like clears up that possibility. So I'm just one guy. If I want something, if I want to check, for instance, the audio for what happened yesterday, I might try to give that to Tanya. Maybe it will work, maybe not. I mean, those audios of me talking to you, I cannot give to her because she would not understand what I'm saying. Even though it's not that complicated English, I'm not using like formal English or even a more literate version of it by any means. But she probably won't understand, which means I can give it to her with expectation. That normal person could even pick up on some signs, right? You can see signs, the difference between gibberish and a language, even if you don't speak the language. Not 100% foolproof, but for the most part, most people can pick up the difference between gibberish and foreign language, even if it's not a language you speak. Simply because gibberish is very specific, for lack of a better term. Right? You have a bunch of things. So, as I said, I'm just repeating things now. What I want to point out in perspective is this. As I was saying, with all the drugs like they're going on me, and to be fair, as I pointed, in this video you have better proof than that. You don't need to go back to this to analyze that in perspective. As I was just saying, you can just listen to me now. There's enough proof that the other one can exactly do it. Might be a word to use as a way to prove to argue that the fact that this thing doesn't have the hidden effect by itself, but when they are throwing things on me, it does. And I forgot, I cannot think straight right now, but there was something in the lines that connects this to prove it. I think I was talking about the day, it was like a cloudy day, the cats are here, the cat's on top of me. And then they too realized that it was not feeling very good there, so they decided to walk away. I was good, and then also started feeling this anguish and desperation, sad, all of a sudden. Anything, again, just by itself, and they think they're really going to take this in full context of what you see every day by itself. And as I said, simplest way to point it out, if I take my little two legs, and moving takes a long time, so they chase me, as you've seen happen before. But if I get into a vehicle and I just go random way, and I get into this way, that's why every time I arrive in a new place, I feel great. It feels amazing, right? But it doesn't matter. If I just, in a random point, just go running here and make a little corner without the wind changes actually not a good way to do it. Everything disappears. Everything is normal. Everything is exactly the same. So, as I said, here is the same proof of the gaslighting you saw before. And as I said, that's a 3.5 years of abuse, constant abuse. What do you expect? That I would be just confident of saying things? And you've seen the type of things that they would find normal. As I said, that's retroactively. That's just another cherry that goes backwards, right? So if you see that all those things I point out about, let's say, the bus company alone, but let's the rest, right? The full deal. The children crimes, for instance. Or in Argentina, you know, you stalk a man taking a shit and you think you're super badass for that. For spying on a good old man taking a shit. Congratulations, international. Very good. For, you know, again, and that's my point. It's funny that they dissociated themselves, but it's not like they hadn't had an impact on me. And same thing for this. Things like that, normally I'll take it as a, yep, for the evidence, that's good. Put down the file. And that's why we pay with cash. That's why we always pay with cash. Actually, one of those times, if that happens one more time, the other one I will pay in cash, just to get that as well. Mostly for completion. But, and in the car, they're going to read Forstrans, which is the city transportation department, not a name of a random private company. That's what you see in the videos. That's what you see in the bank statement. That's who is actually doing the transaction. So even if I was going to sue or like that, which again, as I said, the value in money is nothing. What matters is, I mean, it's not nothing. $5 wouldn't be that much, even for me. It adds up. It's the price of a meal. If it happens again, it's the price of that food. 1 kilo of that food which means 4 days of them feeling hungry is what costs that, right? Roughly. It's less than 20. So, again, none of this is light. None of this is just nothing. Quite the contrary. But the major bulk evidence is for all the abuses you saw before. As I said yesterday, the opening of the vent, so drugs will come inside the bus. And notice that the vent was open already before I could come in. All the other crimes, literally everything else. Okay? So, and not just the bus company, mind you. And that's the thing. I actually want to, I'm not going to say what I wanted. I don't want to get you damn with the evidence. So, my apologies for that. I'm just pointing out that, as I said, it doesn't really matter. One way or another, you get the evidence either about the whole crime or the context about this. Because at the end of the day, we know what's going to happen, right? After all, if they were to get angry and get changed, those things would have happened already. And it's not going to happen. And I'm now even pointing out the other possibility because that's too good to be placed by itself. Right now, I was trying to know what I'm doing when I was opening this. It's the bag precedent. See, I was trying to circumvent the bag first to pick up because one of the things that I do need now. Bag, it's a backpack. There's a backpack first. It hurts to move by itself. The other one is holding together, but the backpack really hurts. As a matter of fact, just a casual thing about what I said about the shit country, and that scene of those uniformed police officers while joking and doing that, just trying to stop me from boarding a bus to leave the city, while they knew that I was not a criminal, I was not doing anything wrong, because by then they had checked on me and they had been part of interacting with passing close by several times, so they knew that I wasn't doing anything at all. They had the agenda to help with the theft, with the robbery of my belongings, and obviously that wouldn't play out if on the same day I just move out of the city, would it? So because of that you get to see that clearly enough. As a matter of fact, part of the reason, and that is no small inspiration why now evidence is everywhere, because again, you'd imagine, trust but verify. I find that very wild as a possibility. Even when I saw happening there, I didn't expect that. You see some actual factors as well as after that they were yelling at me for this petition. Again, someone who just got everything stolen from him. Then the city tried to pretend that I was a beggar and tried to act as such. And keep in mind, back then, although I would sleep some days in the streets, that was directly traced to the hotels doing crimes against me, much like happened in the city here. The difference is that here arrived with Estonia, and this is a different country, right? But putting very clearly, they literally stole my property. The city, through police force in uniform, stole my property, and then again twice in 1-2 days proximity one another. And they're my documents, to later act up. And as a matter of fact, one of the biggest links to the city is indeed acting up. And normally, I even mentioned the police itself, as usually mentioned the city of thieves, is because of the later acting up to say that I somehow was a beggar because they didn't have the money to pay because they stole my things. So, as I said, none of this is even marginally undocumented. Least of each, the criminals themselves. After all, I cannot know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I cannot get there without it. So I'm gonna have to check. Yeah. That might have something to do with this crime as well. Those crimes are the things being disappearing. Tough to say. Tough to say in many regards. But the noises and from the fire truck material there on the other side. There's just about anything who is not a fire truck, okay, will probably be damaged if it's throwing too much. That's the noise of something hard falling. I thought it was something of mine, but I know it was there. It was in the back. Also, since you're commenting about that crime, is something else that I did notice, which is that, for instance, I heard this thing falling here, and to me, it felt like it was in my back. I don't know how that happens. I don't know why that is. What is that? But I know I just told you. I felt that I heard this noise that was clearly in front of me, and I swear I thought it was in my back. So much so that I looked backwards to see if I fallen behind me. So, I'm not going to explain more than that. Also, cannot find the bag. I'm not saying that it's stolen. It's not yet. I am saying it's there. I don't know what it is. It looks like it's here. So much shit inside. Yeah. No, it isn't. That's what it is. Yeah. So, and what else? Well, yeah, and Peter mentioned the thing there in the City of Thieves about when you think about what you should leave, well, that's also another thing. Leaving a city based on the experience, which is well documented, and the fact that criminals here seem to be so faithfully mirroring events as they played out in the country, is a process. Even if I were to, it has to be done with several precautions. Some of them are already in place, I said the backups, and the bottles and the other things that's distributed, and they stay there and they can be recovered later. But the other things, well, need to be properly addressed, which means that even that it's a process. And I imagine they might be tormented by their mind. And you see, again, it's our way to, in a way, express exactly what I intended, but unintentionally. I intended for that to express that when you say it's a tormented mind, you talk about someone who is tormented by psychological and other issues of the sort. I need to explain English here. And I wanted to emphasize that it's caused by them. I don't know if it was on the nose, but in the process of being on the nose, kind of perfectly embodies the sheer amount of torment that I have to go through, particularly if not so much the torments, more the gaslighting and the other things and how much they affect me and the burden they place on me, right? Now, I just want to finish up with an important point, which is, as I said before, they specifically preying on moments like this. That's why I say about prey and predators. That's precisely what I'm referring to. Let's say This busing, as I said, normally there's even a way to gather evidence, not positive by any means, because I still need to move, but and usually for drugs around the time, but a way to get effective evidence, right? And because of that, the actually, I don't want to use this bus. Well, that's kind of the case in point. It doesn't even very good evidence because I'm just saying after the other, but it is a good thing. I prefer to not use this bus. And I remember last time saying something like it was around noon. And I noticed that because there was another time when I noticed that the bus where they were doing things to was a bus at 11, and they're trying to get me to the bus at noon. And I remember thinking something weird about last time, so I think that was. And as I said, well, I do want this type of thing, I'm fine, but I just don't want to wait another hour. It's the thing, right? So it's gonna trust me, and mostly that. I cannot stress enough how much drugs are a pivotal part of this crime. This is it. I have to organize things. This is an absolute mess. This is just the volume stuff and stuff. That's an absolute mess. I want to organize that, and I can't because even a day again with no sun, right? Otherwise, flattens, wind. I feel sick because they will not stop doing drugs on me. They will not. So, as I said, this is essentially it. We saw the direct consequence of the crime on the Sunday. Sunday? No, it was Saturday. Which day it was? Friday, right? Holy Friday? Yeah, it was Holy Friday. And you see the crime as of now. And yeah, what I wanted to link up was with the predation, as I do, for instance, when they think I'm playing video games, and then they do, because notice also it never starts by itself. It never starts with playing video games and then right away something major happens. It's usually the probing thing, but they think to do something close enough to do it, and very notoriously, well, not extremely damaging by itself. So we're talking about someone approached to me this day yesterday. I can tell you the one from yesterday. She was, we had this kid laughing very close to me with a baby, a very small child, and then parading that literally in front of me, exclusively in front of me, or something like that. Laughing 15 minutes. Right now, I cast my side, and unless he was sitting at the table in front of me, he otherwise wouldn't see, or wouldn't have any vision on me, and I wouldn't have vision on it. Right? I was there. It was coming to be sitting close to me. So, again, once again, involving children in the crimes, I couldn't tell us about it and even notice until he was posing in front of me with a baby. And normally I wouldn't tell that much, except that was not good enough. He pulled out a phone and he kept pointing the phone my way while posing there with a baby. Which I thought, well, we document criminals with children these days, because, again, first off, it's clear enough for you to see, kind of like the busting. Leaves no one stuck unturned. And yeah, in other words, we went to the table in an empty restaurant. We went to the table in front of me, in diagonal to the right, exactly like the other ones. That's the MO. So they would sit in tables immediately in front of me and to the side until I emphasized that. In response to me emphasizing that in my offline video that never got published anywhere. Now they do exactly the same, but they sit on the side to that table. So you'll be diagonal to me. Not to the other side, not to the back, but to diagonal. So the preferred place is the one in my corner, so long as I have vision on them. Now, yesterday there was a problem because I only had partial vision, and that wasn't good enough for the criminal. So he was doing that, and that was the problem. And if you notice, he recorded me. By the way, talk about things. That vehicle was parked right there. No one got in. No one got out. Nothing got in. Nothing got out. It was parked there in the middle of nowhere. The sun as well, even though there's no much sun. I mean, there is not much sun indeed. But moving out exactly as I'm passing by. So one more to those, right? Another MO, right? We can do that quite often these days. I don't really know the purpose. My best idea is that they have some shit-ass excuse. So they think it's a killer argument and make a sovereign system find it funny. Which is saying a lot. And they think it's going to be a killer argument if the time comes. Probably something like a discounted version of what I do. Except as you notice, most things that I do already heavily emphasize their previous crimes because of course they would. And okay, moving forward. Wow, why am I explaining that here? And that's the point. Why indeed? Got lots of things. One of the best examples of this, by the way, if I don't know the best examples, so I know those things are in the place. Now I don't think it's going to work anymore because I did this way too many times for that to continue working. It's better, but not nearly as much. But last time, it was water to wine. Literally water to wine. Again, as I said, there's only so many times you can do. Again, I'm surprised it worked the second time, to be honest, and they continue to work. I think 2 more times after. But I recommend you look back at those videos and see how much you say, wow, it's just you feeling something because you're carrying a lot of weight. I'm still carrying the weight, first off. And secondly, then why disappears when I cross the street? If I'm just like, backlash on my body because I did carry weight before. First off, you saw the most insane times when it would happen, including happening as soon as I'm picking up the weight, or happening several minutes after I put it down, as you saw, I think the first day, when I noticed the sweat drugs, I have used the sweat drugs. I got here, I put the things down, I just sit down there, and then all of a sudden my body starts to sweat. I mentioned down that day. Again, you see the evidence in the video. So as I said, everything, every single day has history because they've been doing those crimes with complete impunity and completely shamelessly for several months in this city alone, plus years in total. And as I said, that's why I mentioned that law enforcement actually did a huge disservice because in the process they allowed them to be, again, they're imagining throughout this entire time you see them actually something similar to a frog in hot water because they kept increasing the atrocities to the point, the crimes to the point where they reach atrocity levels in case of the tortures and the other abuses. There's no sensation and there's no place to go where they wouldn't be throwing something to cause me excruciating pain. That's an atrocity. As for the other things, except that they probably not expect me to go to the mall, the main point, and sit in the middle of everybody and realize, well, here's where we are now. So everybody can see. So, and as usual, they didn't quite have any response to that when that happened. And indeed, you see several people finding that the most absolutely hilarious thing to see a man excruciating pain right next to them while they eat a casual Sunday dinner. So, as I said, if you think there's two sides to this, you just haven't seen those things. But they're there. And if you don't know who knows about them, they do. They do. All the criminals do. They cherish those moments. They find it absolutely hilarious. So, yeah. I'm not saying if you don't know the evidence, you're not a good person, or you don't understand, or it's too complicated. I'm saying quite simply, you simply haven't seen the videos. But there, they exist. The criminals are witnesses to that. So, just go look it up. There's nothing else I can say other than just tell you to look it up. So, at the end of the day, And imagine that again. So I see them even threatening to not the police, but people commonly threatening and doing the brave way that they talk to each other. The whole do this and look in jail and risk to so yeah, and that's exactly why things like this are why we mention it. No big explanation, no convoluted stories. Just go there and look for yourself. Plain and simple. As for I think that's a bus. The truck. Oh yeah, talk about weirdnesses. Fucking circuses. I don't even dive on that. Don't care. But yeah, yeah. Actually, never mind. Forget about the vehicle. The vehicle is doing nothing wrong. It's because they changed the lane. Probably only realized that was down there. And that's the point. Again, this is the compilation. I said, the compilations are definitely one type of compilation by the criminals of reasonable things. Because many things are reasonable. Like this one, for instance, as I just said. It actually makes sense you may have done that because they realized they cannot turn to the left. So he went back and turned to the left. Makes perfect sense. And because many times they use things like this to do crimes against me, they couldn't just stop laughing on me trying to reason. Because again, I don't know when they do things for crimes or they're just normal. All I know is that I am a victim of crimes because at least for some of those definitely are crimes. So by the time when I was reasoning some of those things, I'm trying to say, well, probably did that for good reason. That was perhaps fair or whatever. You see the absolute shit show of laughter and jokes and other things, which doesn't bother me as much. Again, as I said, it's not complaining about laughter, it's not complaining about jokes. This is a denouncement of their actual crimes, usually the drug crimes. As I pointed out, for all the things, the drug crimes are the very core of it. The use of substances on me, whatever they are, be either narcotic or other types of drugs, is at the very center of this. Started back home, never stopped. We have a couple hiatus, and it never stopped. Okay? I mentioned Clorinda in the first city that I got in Argentina when I crossed from Asunción. They would expect me to cross by bus. I just walked, right? Not much dissimilar than here. When I can just cross, and I crossed. And by crossing, I arrived there without nobody explaining for this. So I was just a normal guy again. Even though the taxi driver seemed to know me, everybody else didn't. Right? People in the city were just acting normal. And I was just a normal guy. And that fell... Oh, what's coming?